Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Fern Crossley, the voice of the South, hostess with the mostest. And now we have none other than our new mayor, Mayor Quordiniah Lockley. And how are you doing this morning, Mayor?
Good morning, Fern. I am doing well. Blessed to be here with you today.
Well, you said last week you wanted to come on, and I went by your station, went by your office yesterday, and was able to speak to you. And so I'm glad to have you with us. How does it feel being mayor for 2 months?
Fern, it's a challenge, and I'm at that point where I feel that every challenge that has come, I've been able to deal with it or is dealing with it. But I'm finding it to be enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you think are some of the greatest challenges? I was talking to you and many times about the city of Macomb, and it seems like it's been sort of stagnated. I work with the Macomb Creative Economy, and we've had 2 festivals and things like that. And we would like to see Railroad be the new Beale Street by bringing in music and having different festivals. We have the Pike County Arts Council, we have the co-president sitting next to you, and where they bring in musicians during the summer. Now, why don't we music is the common language, and so our little vision is to create that area, because you have some things that are going downtown that's being, down on Railroad, that's being restored. What's that all about?
Well, that was a program that was scheduled and was on tap prior to me coming on board. That was done by the prior administration. It's a TAP program. It's designed to beautify and to create a more comfortable, relaxed environment on Railroad Boulevard. But like you said, there are many things happening in that area, because you also have Valdir, who have come in and purchased the old William building, and there he called Big Daddy Blues, and he's looking at possibly working with the Railroad Boulevard district to create a blues district in that area. So there are good things, but we need to understand that Macomb, Mississippi was a part of the Chitlin Circuit, and because of that, we have not taken advantage of that whole scenario there as it relates to music, as it relates to the blues, and working to bring that into fruition here in the city of Macomb. We have the Bo Diddley Pavilion there, but we need to work on bringing that whole idea or tradition of the blues district or the Chitlin circuit back to Macomb.
Matt Gordon and Vicki Webb were really the forerunners of the Macomb Creative Economy,
Mm-hmm.
and that had been their vision. And so, also too, you had the Bo Diddley statue that was done by Jimmy Webb down there, and the next one is going to be Vasti Jackson, and that's going to be on Summit Street, and a lot others are going to be going down that blues trail down to Summit Street as well. So it's going to be something that, you've got all this talent here, and music is a universal language. I don't care where you go, it's the same notes, Mayor, whether you play the blues, the gospel, or hip hop or whatever, it's still the same notes.
We need to understand that we talk about Bo Diddley, we talk about Vasti Jackson. However, there are many, many others who have contributed to whether it's the musical or literature or acting part that have come from the city of Macomb. So we need to take advantage and utilize those individuals to benefit the city of Macomb.
Mm-hmm. Well, we got this man right up here, Mr. Sip.
That's correct.
And Mr. Sip just got back from Switzerland this past week. Goes all over the world playing music that started from here. But how did music get from here all the way up to Chicago? None other than Muddy Waters.
That's it.
and it's amazing. Right from the heart of Mississippi comes this music, which goes all over the world. And we're not, I would say, capturing it so that we can create these avenues of, say, environments. But I think we're beginning to, such as Big Daddy.
I agree with you, and these are some of the things that I want to work on or to enhance here in the city of Macomb. But when we talk about the city of Macomb, Miss Fern, we need to be honest. We need to be truthful. Because of our history, also, we do not take advantage of our civil rights history and form that has happened here in the city of Macomb. And because when we talk about the movement and Brenda Travis and everything that happened during the civil rights movement, it all started here in the state of Mississippi, and it branched outward when we talk about the 60s.
All right, and Brenda Travis was here about 3 weeks ago with her new book.
That's correct.
Okay, and the Friends of the Library presented her, and we just happened to have Michael Gattuso, who's, aren't you the president? Yeah, he's the president.
Nobody else would do.
In the studio. But there's something that I just gave you. There's a new act that has just been published, process, HR 1242, 400 Years of African American History Commission Act. And yesterday I contacted Brenda Travis in reference to that there's positions on this commission, and that one of them she should be one of those commissioners. And so she's going to contact Representative, I forgot his name, and she's going to see if she can get herself on that commission. And that would be where we could get all this history that has happened here, primarily in Macomb, to the national arena. Because, and you say, well, how did this bill get passed? And hardly anybody knows anything about it. And it got passed through President Donald Trump. He did it. And I gave you a copy of it, and I hope you can read it and everything and see how we can really bring the history of primarily this area to the national forefront.
We can do that, but at the same time, we need to focus on what we can do locally to enhance our efforts to demonstrate the civil rights era here in Macomb, Mississippi, because as you know, the history is clear that we were the bombing capital of this nation during the civil rights movement. And many of the people who are capitalizing off the civil rights movement include our history, but we are the one who should be telling our own history. Well, we can tell our history better than anybody else.
If you don't tell it, what happens? It won't be your story.
That's correct.
Okay. And so, are you old enough to be here? Been here in the 60s?
I was old enough to have lived on Summit Street during the time of the bombing of Mr. Fred Bates' home, Miss Eileen Quinn home, as well as Mr. C.C. Bryant. My father and my brothers went out at night to make sure our communities and neighborhoods were safe. Had an opportunity to see it firsthand.
Wow, what was it like to wake up to the bombing?
Frightening. And it was frightening to see that our community and it was mostly the men of the community actually out at night, the young men and the older men protecting our communities and our neighborhoods. My brothers would get up and they had different hours that they would go out and help to make sure our communities were safe.
I met C.C. Bryant when I first came here at Society Hill, and he would sit up and tell the different stories what happened to him. Your home being bombed, your barbershop being bombed, your church that you go to, it's being bombed. Well, lo and behold, when I moved here, I lived not too far from Flo Boyd, and a gentleman in the house behind me died. And they said, Fern, you want to help him with some food for that household? I said, oh, sure. I went there and brought some food, and they looked at me really strange. And then I come to find out, that gentleman was one of the major people of the KKK that was doing all the bombing. I said, and they sent me a beautiful thank you note and everything, and I'm thinking, Wow.
You know, we talk about the city of Macomb. We talk about some of the changes that's happening. And you know, I'm one of those individuals that deal with reality. And one of the things that's been challenging to me here is simply because I am the second black elected mayor for the city of Macomb, Zach Patterson being the first. And but I am the first mayor where there has been a change in the makeup of the board, where the board is now predominantly black. Due to that fact, some of our citizens, because there's a black mayor, because there's a black majority board members, have decided that the city of Macomb is doomed. I served as the city administrator for 7.5 years, guided the city through the recession. If I was good enough to do that, then why not give me a chance to prove that I'm good enough to make sure that the city of Macomb is governed correctly? However, they have already cast doubt and the cloud over this administration already.
Mm-hmm. Has it been predicated in results to a lot of the media attention and the previous board and all the confrontations that people had and how it hit the front page of the paper?
You know, if I can, I have spoken with both the newspaper and your competitor, 93.5, in their efforts to deter the negative reporting that has come from both the newspaper as well as that radio station. I cannot. My motto, my slogan was to move the city forward. But if you have people who are capitalizing on the negative vibes of the city, then it will be extremely hard for me to move the city forward. And I'm finding that out as I move through different segments of our community. There are people who are listening to that and they are buying into that without even having any conversation, without even sitting down talking to me, not knowing which way my vision is going for the city of Macomb.
Mm-hmm. And negativity always gets out there more, it seems like. But what this station wants to do, and primarily I've always wanted to do, is to lift people up. And I never got involved in the politics of what was going on because I knew if you keep pressing that and keep pressing that, you're not showing the overall potential of what this city and what people can do. If you start lifting people up where they are, and you know, it's just like coming up and saying, "Oh, don't you look nice today?"
That's right.
That's just one little thing you say. "Oh, don't you look nice today?" I learned that from driving a bus. I had to have 65 kids on my bus, and I had no other adult but me. And I had to lift those young people up and always know something about them to make them feel good about themselves. Today they're grown, they come up to me, or they'll see me in my car and they just be hollering out. And one young man would say, "You still praying for me, Miss Fern?" I said, "Yeah, well, one day you go minister." And he was a hoot person.
And Miss Fern, you know, I always tell people that when you look at me, you judge me. And one part of me that many people forget is that I am a minister. I have been ordained for over 40 years. I have pastored over 20 years. Knowing how to work with people is very important. And so often people forget that about me. But let me tell you, for everything that I have gone through, I have understood who had my back. I have understood who holds me up. And a lot of people forget that about me.
Well, yeah. I don't. Because I remember one thing I asked you about in conversation, and you gave me some advice. But seriously, in ministering, we really, people say, "Well, I've been ordained." My consciousness is that we've all been given the Great Commission.
That's correct.
To go, okay? And if we're following Jesus Christ, He says, "Follow me." Well, what did He do? He hit the streets.
That's right.
And so if He hit the streets, and common vernacular, what are we doing? Well, I go to church, or I am a choir member. No, that's not what this is all about. This is about building the kingdom. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. To build the kingdom, when the invisible became visible because of love,
And that's it.
love.
You're hitting the key. Without love, it's all vanity. Okay? And we have to learn to love one another. And understand, loving does not mean that we're going to agree on everything. But love means that I'll be able to love you regardless. And a lot of people forget to understand that when I look at people and I deal with people, and you may have talked about me, you may not even have voted for me, but I treat you with a smile and I treat you with the love and respect, then that's it. And a lot of people don't know how I can do that, but without that inner spirit that guides me and allows me to treat people the way I would want to be treated, then,
We're spiritual beings having a human experience.
yes.
Okay? What if we had a contract, a sacred contract before we were born, and God positioned us, okay, I'm going to send you, Quordiniah, I'm going to send you to Macomb, Mississippi, you live on Summit Street. Fern, I'm going to send you to La Jolla, California, and you're going to have all these experiences. Then we've got other people, Michael Batus, we got other people here in the studio. We have all been sent to certain families to have certain experiences. And so we're all here in this room now talking about the city of Macomb in Mississippi. Who would have thought that Fern M. Crossley would be living here from La Jolla, California, in San Diego? Never would have thought that. But I was positioned here, and I can see it now. I'm looking in hindsight. Okay, but before, I'm going down the aisle getting married again, and 3 months later, welcome to Mississippi, Fern.
Understand, my belief is that God put people in places where He needs them or He wants them. And if we accept that, then we do our best to do what God has indicated for us to do.
Okay. In the city of Macomb, and we have meetings and we have work sessions and things like that. What does that do? When does it get into? How can I say? Do you send your announcements out? What's going to be on the docket ahead of time?
The city clerk, normally on Friday, the city clerk sends out the docket, and she has a list that she sends the dockets out to, and anyone who wants to be on that list, all they have to do is notify the city clerk, and they will be added to that list. But it goes out to the newspaper, it goes out to any venue that we consider to be the public.
Who is the voice of the city?
Primarily, the mayor is the voice for the city. The mayor is the PR person, the way the organization structure is set up for the city of Macomb.
And the challenge that you have is to have people to have an effort, to be open to hear what you have to say.
That's correct. Not a closed mind or try to box me in, but to have an open mind and let us work together to move the city of Macomb forward. Understand, one ward can't do it by itself. One group of people cannot do it by him or herself. It takes everyone.
A village.
Yes, it takes everyone coming to the table with no hidden agendas, but being open and honest and agreeing to work together to move the city forward.
I think myself, I know that when we had the First Responders Day,
Yes.
and it was so nice. You made your proclamation, you came over there, and I talked to so many of the people that are the first responders, and I think we don't give them as much credit due, and that's why we want to share with them, because they're on the front line. And I'm sure that sometimes, today is 9/11, 17 years since that happened, and looking at 300 some firemen lost their lives. And we never know when a first responder, a police officer or a fireman or an EMT goes out, what's going to happen to them. And so as working with the city and the mayor and everything, we want to open our hearts into the challenge for living in the 21st century.
You know, we appreciate our first responders. We appreciate our police department, our fire department, the EMTs. But one group that I found out that we sometimes forget that was added to that first responders was the public works department.
Okay.
Because when you talk about having water,
Yes.
you know, doing,
Yeah.
you know, it's important to have that water running and
Yeah.
flowing,
Yeah.
doing in an emergency, and they are the ones who make sure our water is operating. Not only that, but when it comes to clearing the streets for the firemen and police to be able to get in and out, it is the public works department who's out there. And sometimes we forget them, but the federal government added public works to the first responder list.
Okay.
So let's make sure
Sure.
when we talk about first responders that we don't forget that one that's so easily forgotten, but when we don't have water, we
Yeah.
look for them
Oh, yeah.
to
Where
be
are
on
they?
spot.
Water and electricity.
You know, I remember when Katrina came through, the city of Macomb Public Works Department made sure that we had water. We were there 24 hours making sure the generators were working and the pumps were working, and we were one of the few cities that still had water during that time. It's so important that we emphasize all those who are first responders.
Well, thank you for reminding me so that next year they will be added to it. And I will tell Debbie Johnston in a few days because I'll be seeing her. She coordinates this and everything from River Park.
And let me go a step further. There are those that talk about the police department that puts their lives online, and they talk about the fire department that puts their life online. And I appreciate those. Those are mindsets that I don't have. I will not run into a burning building. I will not want to take a bullet. But those individuals do. But in the public works department, because they deal with so many chemicals, that they too put their lives on the line every day when they have to deal with those chemicals that could kill. And if there's ever a emergency where those chemicals are released, then you'll realize how deadly those chemicals are that they deal with on a daily basis.
And I heard a gentleman was telling me about that, and that's Henry Green. He was saying that when they were little kids, they'd be out there in the field, and the plane would be going overhead, releasing those chemicals into the land. And I never thought about that, you know? Way back when, how they used to do things. I probably need to do something like that now. But I would like to have an open invitation for you to have the state of what's going on in the city, however you would like to do it, so that you could come on and feel free to discuss the things, pros and cons of what's happening.
We'll love to do that. I do plan in January to have a state of the city address to say where we are and where we're going. I do want to say that I'm almost complete with a 3 to 5 year strategic plan to move the city forward. However, once I finish, I want it to be published, and everybody who would want a copy to come by City Hall and see how you can fit into this goal, this plan to move the city forward. Stop depending on the mayor to do it all by himself, or the board to do it all by itself. It's going to take, again, every segment, the business community, the education community, the medical community. It's going to take all of us working together to move the city forward.
And community, if you look at that word com, it's a Latin word, being with. Okay, unity with diversity.
That's correct.
Okay, I need a rap made of that. I have a dear friend named Miss Tiffany. I think I'll contact her and say, "Hey Tiff, I need a rap. Unity with diversity."
and that's, you said something right there. Understand, we all have our differences. I don't care who you are, simply because God created each one of us as a different individual. So we're going to have our differences, but with our differences, we still need to work together.
We got to look at each one of us has been sent by God.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, one's not less than the other just because of the diversity of that person. Lord, if I come in sometimes in some places and start speaking Spanish, they tell me, stop talking about me. I said, how vain can you be? I'm not talking about you. I just ask, how were you feeling today? Yeah, but that happens because they've never been exposed.
That's correct.
Okay? And so, there are more people that speak foreign languages that live in other countries than America. America thinks, oh, you only speak English. No, there are other languages.
That's correct.
Okay, and if you look at the Aramaic, the Hebrew, the Greek, the Latin, and the German, then the Bible finally came in English. And the lady said, well, Fern, I didn't know that the Bible wasn't written in English. I said, lady, do you know?
There was no English.
There was no English.
None at all.
Not a nit. What do you mean there was no
Hebrew, Greek, and Latin.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you think about his language, Yeshua is Jesus Christ. It's a translated name, Jesus, which is Greek. Okay, and Yeshua means son of salvation. And so, well, I always go off on that. But in the meantime, we want to thank you so much for being our community focused Mayor Quordiniah Lockley.
Thank you.
And you can say gracias, senora.
Gracias, senora.
We'll be right back with our after